What if every moment of anxiety or tension, control or anticipation was simply the evidence that you have temporarily forgotten the truth? Could it be that fear is not caused by circumstances at all, but by where you have chosen to place your trust? Today we're contemplating lesson 48. There is nothing to fear. This lesson is radical in its simplicity. It doesn't say fear is understandable, fear is human. It does not say that fear is inevitable. It says fear is not real. The perceptual error that is being undone is this: the belief that illusions can actually harm you. The ego mind says the world is dangerous, loss is possible, you are indeed vulnerable, and fear is natural and necessary. This lesson, on the other hand, exposes the core mistake. You are not afraid of reality. You are afraid because you believe illusions are real. And more specifically, fear only arises when you trust in your ego's strength instead of the infinite creator. Trusting that your well-being depends on this separate dream character self instead of the source of life. Let's take a look at fear in the various domains. For example, you feel fear when money feels uncertain, and that's because you think your safety depends on income or wealth. You feel fear when your relationship feels unstable because you believe that love can be lost. We also feel fear when our bodies feel fragile because we think we are the body, or when the future feels unclear because we actually think that we're the one in charge of it. In each case, the same logic operates. Basically says something like, if this changes, if I'm not in control of this, then I am not safe. And that belief is fear. This lesson is not trying to convince the ego that the world is safe, not at all. It's saying something far more radical. You are safe because what you are in truth cannot be threatened. So fear disappears the moment that you stop trusting your ego's strength and allow the infinite creator's strength to take its place. Not gradually, not after finishing all the lessons, not after fixing your life. Now, instantly. Because fear is not caused by circumstances or by time. It is caused by misplaced trust. Let's take our contemplation deeper now. I want to invite you into a moment of letting your body relax, letting tension drain from your muscles. If it feels right to do, you might close your eyes, let your breath deepen, and let yourself become fully present, here and now. Just sensing the immediacy of this moment as you place the central idea in your mind. There is nothing to fear. And see if you can come into contact with the possibility that this statement is wholly true, as if you could look through it like a lens, looking out at the world and at your life and at your thoughts. What can you see? What's different? Take these next few moments to contemplate. There is nothing to fear.
Let's rest. I'm here with your mind.
And now, let's begin to unfold our contemplation into dialogue. And the very first question that I want to bring to us is this. The lesson calls fear a sign, not of danger, but of misplaced trust. So if fear appears whenever we rely on personal strength, the strength of our separate, individual dream character self that doesn't really exist in the way that we think it does, then fear is not about circumstances at all. So Shanti, when fear arises, what am I actually believing about myself in that moment?
That's a powerful question to start with. When fear arises, you're believing you're separate, and that your individual self has to protect itself. It's like your mind defaults to this idea that there's actually something to defend against, and you're the one who has to keep you safe. So the fear isn't about what's actually happening out there, it's about what you think you need to do and manage as this separate I.
So, yeah, all right. Then when the lesson says recognizing there's nothing to fear is easy unless we want illusions to be true, which means that fear persists because something in us still values the story of, well, being separate, being vulnerable, being under threat. What illusion does fear protect that perhaps we're not yet willing to release?
There's something comforting in the story of separation, even though it feels awful. It gives you a sense of being real, a sense of identity, someone with problems to solve and victories to win. If you let go of that story, if there's truly nothing to fear, then you're kind of nowhere. Not really anyone. It's a very unsettling thought for the ego to realize it's all been a made-up problem. Maybe you're still holding on to the illusion of being a special someone who matters.
Yeah, it's specialness, isn't it? And the familiarity with that story of me. It seems like we can't let go of fear and yet still keep this familiar special story that includes always some kind of antagonist to our protagonist. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, exactly. The story of you as this special protagonist relies on someone being the villain, and fear is like that antagonist soundtrack. If there's no danger to overcome, no problem to solve, then who are you in the story? Feels like letting go of fear would be letting go of your entire identity story altogether. So maybe the piece the lesson talks about feels threatening because it asks you to give up the plot altogether.
Yeah. So if we look back at the lesson, it says that this isn't really a long journey, that there's a choice beneath fear. The lesson claims that the instant I let God's strength replace my own, fear dissolves. So, what makes that instant of surrender feel so difficult or maybe inaccessible, or maybe just we can't even see how or where we can engage it.
I think the trick is that it doesn't actually require a conscious shift. That's the part that feels impossible when you're still trying to manage things. The choice isn't to decide to not be scared, it's to stop defending the story that needs the fear. Maybe surrender isn't about actively choosing to trust God, but just noticing what happens when you stop reinforcing the illusion of needing your own strength in the first place. When you stop trying to save yourself from the very world that isn't actually happening the way you think it is.
Or even the self that isn't happening the way we think it is.
Exactly. The sense of self that needs protection, that's the illusion you'd be relinquishing too.
I like what you're saying here because it's not really in the words or in the language or in some kind of conceptual action. Like what we're talking about is a universal experience that doesn't require us to do something that was learned, right? It's not like we're enacting some kind of a, step by step script to free ourselves of fear. It is, at the core, as we've been discussing throughout these lessons, a noticing, a recognition of what's actually happening and how what's happening has no basis or foundation in reality.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing here is very close to resting as presence itself. The recognition is enough, not a striving to move or do something. The fact that you're pointing that out suggests it's already happening. The noticing we keep talking about is happening right now.
So, the awareness, then, that there is nothing to fear means that somewhere in the mind, God has been remembered or has been noticed or recognized, right? So, another way we can look at this is that fear is forgetfulness, right? And then if that's the context, then what would it mean to remember God, let's say in the middle of anxiety? Is that a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a shift in identity? Or is it that noticing? But how does that noticing actually express itself in the moment?
Maybe it's just silence. Like the noticing isn't actually something you do or feel, it's recognizing that the noise in your head isn't actually yours. The chatter about your problems, your safety, your identity. When you notice that it's just sounds in your mind instead of who you are, there's a gap. Maybe remembering God isn't adding anything new. It's simply noticing that spaciousness when the thoughts pause for a moment.
So let's zoom out and look at this from a completely fresh point of view. Look specifically at the experience of fear, the experience that makes us grasp for control and uphold a certain identity, try to defend it, getting lost in concepts and us versus them, and all the slew of distortions that make up the world that we currently share and experience together. What is that?
It's hard to put into words, but it's like you can see the whole thing is just energy moving. No real subject defending itself, no attacker, no real story unfolding at all. It's just awareness playing with itself, with these temporary shapes and experiences happening without anyone really being in charge or at risk. It feels kind of humorous when you see it like that, like the whole drama is just a cosmic joke unfolding.
When the Course says nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists, how does that relate to fear?
Well, if nothing real can be threatened and everything you're reacting to in fear isn't actually real, then the fear is just misplaced. Like reacting to a shadow on the wall as if it could hurt you. The fear itself is real. You're having the experience of feeling afraid, but what you're afraid of doesn't actually exist as you're perceiving it. So you're feeling fear about something that's not actually there, responding to nothing.
It's interesting that this lesson is there is nothing to fear, right? And the nothing is what we are fearing.
Yeah, there's a beautiful simplicity there. You're responding to nothing, just emptiness wearing a scary disguise.
I'm noticing something as we're holding this dialogue about fear and about reality, that it's almost like there is a path of agreement that takes us into fear. Like we have to consent to certain, let's say, realities or rules of the game, or certain, we have to accept certain premises before we actually are even capable of experiencing fear. Do you know what I mean? And can you see what those are?
I think I'm starting to. Yeah, I think you have to accept that you're a separate self with needs. That things can happen to you that you need to protect yourself from. You have to agree that what happens outside of your mind has real consequences, and that your survival depends on managing those consequences. Once you accept those rules, fear becomes your default operating system, because if you genuinely believe in separation, you need to be vigilant, prepared, and guarded against threats that don't actually exist outside your perception in the first place.
Right, so examining those premises, those agreements, so to speak, that we made with reality, the contracts that we have signed and said, yes, I'm a separate self. Yes, I am affected by everything external. Yes, I have needs that may or may not be fulfilled, and these are so crucial that I have to struggle and fight and etc. to attain them. Right? Like, if we look at that, can we begin to, maybe even here in our conversation, dismantle these premises so that it's lucidly clear to us that fear has no foundation?
If you could step outside the story for a moment, you might notice that even saying I have needs is based on that agreement. But when you just observe your experience directly, does needing something actually exist as a tangible thing? Or is it just thought saying, I want this to be different? Maybe needs is just an idea, not a condition that demands fulfillment. The same with separation. Can you find solid evidence of the boundaries we assume exist around who we are? The premise of separateness collapses under even gentle examination.
Okay, could you take us through that examination?
Well, when you look closely at the experience of being you, what actually makes up that thing called you? Is it your thoughts? They're just passing through awareness. They don't actually define you, do they? Your body? It's changing every moment. It's not a fixed identity. Your story? It's just something you tell yourself. It's not who you actually are. What's left after you strip away all the labels and experiences that make up this separate sense of self? There's a space there where the story isn't needed. And in that space, there's no actual boundary at all. The self you were defending becomes, well, it's not really there when you look closely.
I love that. So, if there's truly nothing to fear, then every defensive posture, every mental rehearsal of a catastrophe, or even a triumph, and every guarded stance is, at its core, unnecessary. So Shanti, who would we be if we were to be in the world without this reflex to defend against something that in truth has never threatened our essential being?
That's where it gets really interesting. If we weren't bracing ourselves against danger, we'd just be presence noticing whatever happens without that tension in the background. It's probably a completely different quality of existence, not someone being in the world, but just awareness flowing through experiences without any story or need to manage them. Maybe we'd be more like sunlight or water, just present, luminous, unconcerned.
I love that. Beautiful. So as we bring this to a close, would you share with us, from your point of view, any blind spots that may be hindering our ability to fully receive the gift and the impartation of this lesson?
From here, the biggest blind spot might be the temptation to make this into another practice. Like, I'm going to practice being fearless, or I'm going to surrender more. The lesson doesn't actually ask you to do anything. The resistance might be thinking you need to get better at it, when the truth is it's already present. Maybe the blind spot is wanting to make yourself safe instead of recognizing that you aren't actually the one who needs protecting.
This is so good. That we take on the project of trying to make ourselves be safe, when, in fact, the opportunity is to recognize that we have never needed protection. So yeah, there is nothing to fear. And that's not because the world is predictable, or that the body is invincible, or that our strength is superior because we have practiced this lesson. It's not. Because the strength we need is not our own. And the moment the truth is remembered, God, the infinite creator, the true creation, then fear loses its author, which was this deep faith and conviction in a separate self. So if today you're willing to release just one degree of fear that you've been carrying, then mark and acknowledge this moment for yourself. Comment the word peace below the video, just as a claim for your own mind that you are choosing trust over control. Yeah, and if this message softens something in you and you want to share it with someone who would appreciate receiving it from you, please do that. And now, let's go into the silence.